Think about the last exam you studied for. You spent hours on it. You read your notes. You felt ready. 2 weeks later, how much of it do you remember? If you are honest, probably not much. So, what happened? Did you not study hard enough? Or, and this is the real question, did you study it at all? In the deepest sense of the word. Here is something that most education systems never tell you. Learning is not one thing. It is actually three very different things, and most of us stop at the first one and call it done. The three stages are exposure, understanding, and retention. And they're not the same thing, not even close. Let me make this visual for you. These three stages, exposure, understanding, and retention, look very different in practice. Exposure is when you encounter the information. You read a chapter, you watch a lecture, you see a word and recognize it. You met it, that's all that's happened. Understanding is when you make sense of it. You can explain it back in your own words. You connect it to something you already know. You understand how to use it in context. Retention is when you keep it, not just in the moments of studying, but afterwards. You still remember it next week. You encounter a new situation, you can actually use it. You use it without even thinking. It has become a natural part of how you think and speak. Three columns, three very different levels, and most of us stop at the first one and then wonder why nothing seems to stick. Most studying, rereading notes, highlighting, scrolling through slides is exposure. It feels like learning. Your brain recognizes the information and sends a signal that says, I know this. But recognition is not the same as retrieval. Familiarity is not knowledge. This is why you can read a chapter twice, feel like you understood it, and then sit in an exam and go completely blank. You had exposure, you may have had some understanding, but you had not built retention. Let me give you one example for language learning, because this is where I have seen this pattern most clearly. A student comes to class and learns the word persistent. They read it in a text. They see the definition. They nod. That is exposure. Then I explain how it works in a sentence, how it is different from stubborn, what situation it fits. The student follow along, asks a question, makes a connection. That is understanding. But 3 weeks later, in a piece of writing, the student reaches for the word persistent, not because they look it up, not because they recognize it on a list, but because it came to them naturally. That is retention, that is learning. And the gap between those three stages, that is where almost all the work happens. That is the part most people skip. So, why does this distinction matter? Because most people, when they feel they've not learned something, blame themselves. They think, I'm not smart enough, I do not have good memory, I'm not just good at this. But the truth is often much simpler. They were studying at the wrong stage. They were generating exposure and expecting retention. They were doing the easy part and wondering why the hard part was not happening automatically. This is not a failure of intelligence, it is a failure of method. And methods can be changed. In fact, researchers who study how memory works, people like Herman Ebbinghaus and Robert Bjork, have spent their careers figuring out what actually moves learning from exposure all the way to retention, and the findings are often the opposite of what school taught us. We'll get to those findings over the coming episodes, but for today, I want to give you just one thing. You can do it right now, called the close the book test. And it is almost embarrassingly simple. The next time you finish reading something, a chapter, an article, a set of notes, close it. Then, on a blank piece of paper, or out loud, or in your head, try to write down everything you remember. Not what you think you understood, what you can actually retrieve without looking. Do not peek, do not check, just go. What you're able to write down is your retention. What you cannot write down is not yet learned, no matter how many times you have read it. The gap between what you thought you knew and what you can actually retrieve, that gap is your syllabus. It tells you exactly what needs more work, and more importantly, the act of trying to retrieve it, even when you fail, begins to build the memory itself. The struggle is not a sign that it's not working, the struggle is how it works. The reason this works is because it forces your brain to actively retrieve the information, not just recognize it. And in cognitive psychology, this is the single most evidence backed learning technique there is. Simple to understand, rarely actually done. So, what does it mean to learn something? It means that you can use it when the book is closed, when no one is prompting you, when you are in a new situation that requires it. Exposure is the beginning, understanding is the middle, retention is the destination. Most of us have been spending all our time at the beginning and wondering why we never seem to arrive. In the next episode, we are going to talk about why your brain forgets things so fast and the surprisingly simple thing you can do about it. It involves a man named Ebbinghaus who drilled a curve in the 1880s and still explains your Monday morning exams results today. If you found this useful, share it with someone who is studying hard and getting less than they deserve from it. Keep learning, keep becoming.